There you go.
Well, that didn't suck.
I'll take what I can get.
It was tempting to rush out my review for The Last of Us Part 2. I would have been able to capitalize on the momentum in the game better, probably get a whole lot more views. Overall, it would have probably been the better decision for the channel. But I'm convinced now that it wouldn't have been the better decision for me. Love it or hate it, The Last of Us Part 2 is a game that inspires strong emotions, either in regard to how it wants you to feel, or just how pissed off some people are at it. I haven't seen a single person who has played it that is indifferent about this game. They may have mixed feelings, but those are a mixed series of strong feelings. And when I rolled credits on this game, I found myself in that camp too. I made a spoiler-free video about my knee-jerk reactions to the game, how it made me feel, but I didn't want to dive in and do my full review until I'd play through the game a second time to better absorb what it was trying to do with the full context of the story. Now, with me a single missed collectible away from the platinum after 2 full playthroughs and a whole lot of thought, I'm ready to say that The Last of Us Part 2 is a pretty damn good game. I can't wait to see the analytics on how many people leave at this exact point of the video. Full spoilers ahead, folks. I said in my impressions video that this game has problems, and it definitely does. Namely, the pacing of this game is horrible. This is a 25-hour-long game that feels like 40. Replaying the game a second time did the pacing absolutely no favors. And while this isn't entirely to blame, the main offender to this is how they decide to tackle Abby's story. So yeah, Ellie shares the spotlight in this game with Abby, as we all now know. A difficult pill for a bunch of people to swallow, considering just how good her golf game is. A lot of people have a lot to say about how Joel goes out, and I have my own feelings about it too. My first couple drafts of the script had me go really ham here on trying to explain why I don't hate how it goes down and how it's not so unrealistic and out of character, but that conversation completely derails the review for way too long. I'm going to make a video about it, don't worry, you can yell at me more about my bad opinions there. I can understand people not being happy about how Joel gets killed, but it's the people who object entirely to his death happening at all that I have a harder time understanding. Naughty Dog, for all of their flaws with storytelling and presentation that I'll expand on later, knew what they were doing when they killed him. They were aligning you with Ellie. Before the leaks came out, let's be honest, a lot of people thought that Dina was killed and that's what sends Ellie on a roaring rampage of revenge. In fact, Naughty Dog kinda leaned into that by purposefully creating false marketing and clips featuring Joel in places where he never was, or by changing the characters' ages to hide the fact that some of those scenes were flashbacks. I personally don't have a problem with them obfuscating the truth of the game before it came out to preserve impact, but I get when people are pissed that they didn't get what was promised to them. I remember in a writing course I took once that I was told that if you don't give your audience what they think they want, what you give them instead needs to be something even better. And like so many decisions Naughty Dog makes here, they didn't quite stick the landing. Killing Dina would have definitely sufficed for sending Ellie on her journey, but the player almost definitely wouldn't have been completely on board. We didn't know her. We didn't care. But we did care about Joel. A lot, as the internet has shown. So yes, basically every player playing the game was aligned with Ellie on her quest for revenge. We were all out for blood. And that was the journey the game was delivering for us for about the first 13 or so hours. And then, in another shocking display of sudden violence, the rug was pulled out from under the audience yet again. Spending the next 10 hours after that point exclusively playing as Abby, seeing her side of the story as it was playing out, is a decision that, while I completely understand why they did it, was a mistake. For a whole bunch of reasons. While Ellie did some really questionable things along her journey, and some players, myself included, could see that this probably wasn't worth it for her at the end of the day, the game still displayed her front and center as the hero of the story. We all wanted the head of Joel's killer. For over 10 hours. Suddenly pulling the rug out from under people and showing that Abby wasn't the monster the game was painting her as wasn't exactly a surprising move. And I don't think at all that it was the wrong one. It's an integral part of the story. The problem comes down to expecting people to be able to erase 13 or so hours of perspective on a character. We were never given a reason to really feel one way or the other about Abby before she kills Joel, and so that action is her real introduction as a character to the audience. And of course, they'll hate her for it. Too much. I think if they had opened the game with Abby's first flashback, establishing her relationship with her dad and why she wants revenge on Joel, I think it helps contextualize her actions killing Joel immediately to the player. We still almost definitely wouldn't agree with her and would want to hunt her down, but it would be easier to imagine her in a complex way instead of as a two-dimensional villain right from the start, not waiting to do so until halfway through the game. It plants an important seed for change in perspective. The other problem with having the two campaigns be very separated is that I think it takes away some of the ambiguity in Ellie's actions. Getting a bit of humanization for Nora before Ellie beats her viciously to death makes that seem more visceral and complicated. Letting the player meet Alice before she's casually killed like so many other dogs before her really helps drive the tragedy of that action home. Getting to really know Owen, seeing his regret and desire to escape all of the bloodshed, makes his death all the more heart-wrenching. These people that you are killing aren't monsters. They're people who did a horrible thing, but they aren't irredeemable. Only finding out about all of that after you know all of their fates is a mistake. Yes, you can retroactively go, "Aw, man, I kind of feel bad that Owen died," but the actual moment of his death doesn't hit you in the way it would if you really knew him beforehand. I think the easy and obvious way to fix this is by having Ellie and Abby alternate their days in Seattle. Play all of day 1 as Ellie, then all of day 1 as Abby, then all of day 2 as Ellie, and so on. While you'll still know the fate of some of the characters beforehand during Abby's perspective, you'll have more context as to who they really are and why they're doing what they're doing. It just lands better, I think, and would be an easy change to make. That being said, there are definitely elements of the story I really like. I actually do like Abby's perspective, especially in a thematic context. She gets a ton of really fun and interesting gameplay segments. Seeing the perspective of the wolves is a fun and cool thing, but most importantly, I just really love Lev. Lev is easily my favorite addition to the cast, and in particular, his evolving relationship with Abby was what really reminded me of the original game in a lot of ways. And I really like that Abby, after killing Joel, feels the need to find some little form of redemption. She knows what she did was wrong, and some part of her hates herself for going through with that revenge. We actually see that across the board with most of her friends. The act of revenge messed most of them up in some way or another, and each is coping in their own way. This further strengthens our concern as we watch Ellie go down the exact same path. We see where it leads. Abby is just Ellie a little bit further ahead on that journey, and it doesn't end pretty. Like, I'm pretty sure every other person who played the game, I also loved the hell out of the Joel and Ellie flashbacks. That museum section is almost definitely going to go down as one of my top 3 gaming moments of the year. It's beautiful, powerful, and reminds us of just what Ellie and we have lost. That scene hits so hard not only because it delivers on the promise of the original game, but also because we know that these happy days were fleeting, and that they'll never come again. It's the honeymoon period before all of Joel's sins came tumbling down upon him. I also did like the ending, but that's a discussion also deserving of a video all on its own. I get what they were going for, I was on board for it, and I think they really tied up the themes well in the home stretch. Stepping away from story, I really like the gameplay of this game. It feels so much more fluid than the original, with so many more ways to approach situations. The more wide open level design also really helps with that. On higher difficulties, it always felt like I was barely keeping my head above water, and that I barely had enough tools to escape from whatever messes I got myself into. It's a tense experience, and it really makes it so that every single smoke bomb, shotgun shell, and bottle was integral to your success. It also really helped sell the feeling of desperation that the characters are going through. Across the board, all of the cast are basically in over their heads and just hanging on to whatever they can find in front of them to keep going. And I felt that exact same way. On a technical level, this game is a complete marvel. The graphical prowess on display here is masterful, and you can tell they're squeezing every single molecule of power they can get out of the PS4. The lighting in particular, as Jacksepticeye couldn't seem to resist mentioning every 10 seconds in his Let's Play, is just phenomenal. The sound design, too, is a masterclass. I can't recommend more that you play the game with headphones. There's no experience quite like it. And Gustavo Santaolall's soundtrack is, again, legendary. Considering how simple the music itself is on a technical level, the amount of emotion that it manages to both convey itself and conjure from the player is just... damn is it good. Also, the performances across the board are fantastic. I mean, it's a Naughty Dog game, and so you know that the people they work with and what they're able to get out of them just oozes levels of professionalism that other companies are only now just starting to match. This game's cutscenes truly feel like you're watching a movie in all of the best ways, and the acting on display from the cast is nothing short of completely engrossing. I bought into and believed every single character, even the ones I didn't much care for, because of how much the actors brought their A-game. Plus, the performance capture made it so that I felt like no part of their performance was lost in translation from silly green tennis ball suit to full digital likeness. Both Ashley Johnson and Laura Bailey deliver some of their absolute best work, which you'd hope for considering the game was resting on their shoulders, but I actually think it's easy to miss just what Troy Baker is really bringing to the table with his limited screen time. Joel total is really only on screen for about an hour and a half, but Troy's performance fills Joel with so much pathos and heart that it's impossible not to feel his loss and relate to Ellie's drive for revenge. This is not the hardened, distant Joel from the original game. This is a man who has been given the chance to be a father again and will do anything to protect his new daughter, even if she hates him for it. The final scene between Joel and Ellie, where he fights back tears as she admits that she wants to start forgiving him, was such a powerful and understated moment. And those character moments are what really let the game's themes and story shine through. The Last of Us Part 2 presented itself to the world as a revenge story, and to the game's own failing, it never managed to convince some players that it really was anything but. In reality, The Last of Us Part 2 is a story of forgiveness, regret, and perspective. The hatred that Ellie and Abby feel, and the cycle of violence that it creates, could only truly end if they either learned to forgive each other and themselves, or if everyone else was laid dead at their feet. Each is the hero of their own story, and each is saddled with a deep regret over their failures in the defining moment of this tale. Abby's revenge was a hollow, empty victory that brought her no closure to the pain she had carried, and Ellie was unable to find it in herself to truly forgive Joel before it was too late. It is only in each of them losing their hatred for each other that they are able to move forward in life and find new meaning, even if their quest ended up taking almost everything from each of them. But both managed to emerge from the end of the game holding on to their humanity, traveling forward to whatever might lie ahead, instead of clinging to their past traumas that had come to define their lives. But most importantly of all, I'd really love to see how many people started listening to Pearl Jam in the last few weeks. Seriously, go to any Future Days video on YouTube and read the comment. Overall, I think this game had the potential to be just as great as its predecessor, but they just couldn't stick the landing. Poor pacing, muddled storytelling, and miscommunication of expectations really make it so that the gem of a story buried underneath is tarnished in the player's quest to discover it. This game made me cry. It had powerful moments of both love and loss, but it also didn't know how best to tell the story it wanted to tell. Despite that, the technical achievements on display, the major improvements to the gameplay systems, and the performances from its cast make it so that playing this game, despite its flaws, it's still a really emotional and moving experience. It's probably the weakest game that Naughty Dog has delivered in quite some time, but it's still a journey that I have a lot of respect and love for. Overall, I'd give The Last of Us Part 2 an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, guys. I know a lot of you won't agree with my feelings towards the game, and that's totally fine. Let's have a conversation down in the comments about our feelings towards the game. I'll be in there responding as much as I can. If you guys enjoyed the video, you know the classic YouTuber spiel, I'll just save you the listen. As I mentioned, I'm working on my video dissecting my feelings about Joel's death. If you're interested, keep an eye out in the next week or so. Talk to you guys soon. Be safe out there.